federal lawsuit is accusing the Department of Education and the Trump administration of failing to properly oversee the public service loan forgiveness program, as well as, quote, arbitrarily and capriciously rejecting applications.
The public service loan forgiveness program, which was passed by Congress in 2007, allows student loan borrowers who work in public service jobs to have their loans forgiven after about 10 years of service. However, 99% of applicants have had their requests rejected. Joining us to dig into what's happening is Randi Weingarten. She's the president of the American Federation of Teachers, the organization behind the lawsuit. Randi joins us now via Skype. Thank you so much for being here.
It's great to be with you.
Randi, just tell us about...
It's night here, it's day
right.
there.
That's right. I mean, we should mention to the audience that Randi is joining us from Bangkok, so thank you so much for coming on.
Of course.
Just explain to us what is behind this lawsuit and really what the next steps are for these teachers.
So, what Betsy DeVos has done is a travesty and a betrayal. I don't know how better to say it. The law that we are suing under is something that was passed in a bipartisan way. It basically says, given the cost of college and the moderate incomes that public servants actually get, whether they're in the Army or firefighters or nurses or teachers, George Bush, Senator Kennedy, Senator Clinton, and others came together and said that if you work in the public service for 10 years and you pay your loans back each and every month for those 10 years, then the rest of your student loans will get forgiven, because that is, you are devoting your life to public service so that the government can actually give you something back for that, and it will help make sure you earn a living wage and not be drawn down every month by a debt payment, a student debt payment of $100 to $500 to $1,000. So the first year that this really should have been actualized is 2017, since the law was passed in 2007. And what you see is Betsy DeVos has done everything in her power to make that not happen for people. 32 million people could be eligible for public service loan forgiveness. There were about 50,000 people who applied. Less than 1% got it. And
so what do you think is going on here? Like, it seems like a fairly non-controversial idea. It was passed in a bipartisan nature, something I think if you ask a vast majority of Americans, they would say, yes, we're down with this.
Exactly right.
So do you think this is just incompetence, or do you think there's a willful approach here to keep people from having access to this loan forgiveness program?
So I think it's both malfeasance and incompetence. I think that, and it's not as if she's the only one to blame. Like, the Obama administration should have made the rules much more transparent, because they were there from 2008 on. But what has happened is that instead of trying to make sure that students and borrowers can get something paid for and can get the law to apply to them, the Department of Education does everything, and it seems to do everything in its power to stop it. And you see that the GOP has wanted to stop this law, like Virginia Foxx, when she was the head of, when the Congress was in Republican hands, she tried to ditch this law. But what you're seeing, Crystal, is that Betsy DeVos is focused on helping the servicers and not the borrowers. I'll give you one example. We also filed a suit in the fall against Navient, one of the big servicers. And Navient said in their motion to dismiss that it doesn't matter what they say to borrowers, like people who've taken out student debt, because their contract is with the Department of Education. So they can lie to borrowers and nobody can actually have a remedy. That's why we're going after the Department of Education. And we have plaintiffs who have paid their debt for 10 years. They call the Department of Education. The Department of Education says, oops, you were in the wrong loan. So now you have to move to a different loan. Why are they not actually saying, wait a second, you paid for 10 years. We're going to find every way to get you your loan forgiven. Instead, it's obstacle after obstacle after obstacle. We have one plaintiff who has this much paper, like a foot of paper of different answers she's gotten from the Department of Education. So that's why I'm saying it's malfeasance, not just incompetence.
Yeah, well, this is absolutely an outrage. So what are the next steps in the case? What are the next steps in the case going forward to see a resolution to this?
So the first thing is it went to, the DC Circuit, and, and no doubt the administration is going to try, instead of solving issues, they're going to try to make a motion to dismiss. Hopefully we will withstand that. And all the legal mumbo jumbo, that means if we can get to the circuit court, and the circuit court will say that the Department of Education has violated its constitutional obligations to these young teachers and young firefighters, and they have to make them whole. They have to make sure that the law that was passed to make sure people went into public service applies to the people who are in public service. So that's why we're going to the courts. It'll probably take a few months, but at the end of the day, we have to help people who are paying $500 to $1,000 a month, and they want to be teachers, they want to be firefighters, they want to be nurses. And so hopefully we can get some relief from the court, but at the same time, we need Congress to make this more transparent and make it easier for people to do this. One last thing I'll say. We have a lot of complicated laws in this land, environmental laws, tax laws. If people can make those things workable, if we can send somebody to the moon, we can make this public service loan forgiveness workable so that the people who go into public service get their loans forgiven after 10 years.
Yeah, well, keep us updated. We're going to keep an eye on it. I also wanted to ask you, though, while you're in Bangkok for an international education conference, what are you seeing there in terms of trends around the world?
So, this conference that we're at happens every 4 years. There are about 32 million educators around the world who are in educator unions, and they all come together about once every 4 years. So in the last two conferences, there's been a lot of focus on quality public education, on stopping austerity and privatization, and ensuring that kids all over the world get access to good education. This time, what we're seeing is that the same kind of demagoguery that Trump is doing in the United States, the racism that you see, the division, the polarization, the using grievance instead of solving grievances, using it to divide people, you're seeing that all around the world. That's a big difference. And particularly in a post-World War II Europe, you're seeing with migration, going into Europe and going into the United States, what you're seeing is instead of solving the problems in those countries, which is why we have this migration, what you're seeing is this tremendous racial divide, misogyny, Islamophobia, racism, xenophobia all across the world.
Interesting. Using grievance rather than solving grievance, I think, is a really interesting frame. I haven't heard it phrased quite that way. Randi, we're always glad to have your perspective and your insights. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Crystal. Thank you. And good luck.
Thank you.
Thanks.
And we'll have more Rising after this.